Coming to you from the rain-soaked Santa Monica Mountains, I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. This is the new Acceleration Radio, right here on KGRA, and of course on my YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. Hey folks, you got to put up with us here. I'm in a trailer. I've got Skype. I've got Fios. I've got my good friend Mac Brunet on Skype. I hope this all works. We did a test. It seems to be working. If it's not, I apologize in advance. But I think the audio is good. And this is a special Acceleration Radio, which will probably air Tuesday or Wednesday on the internet because I don't want to prolong it to Thursday. It will go Thursday live on KGRA, at least the audio. But the video and the audio will be up on my YouTube channel, and that's why you're watching it. Gee, what a surprise. But so much is going on. And Matt, what we are looking at with the COVID-19, the coronavirus, is an unprecedented global event. Never in the history of the world have we seen anything remotely like this. I mean, you could look at World War II and say, well, you know, it was a global war. I get it. And that changed everything. But we're basically at peace. We're not in a world war. And yet airports are shutting down. Schools are shutting down. People are running to the grocery stores. And it's extremely alarming. I've said from the beginning, and I know you and I have talked off the air ever since this thing hit, that this seems to be a managed agenda by the globalists. What are your thoughts?
Well, the real question, I think, is was this accidentally released, or was this a purpose release, or just exactly how did this start? We don't know all the facts at this point. We've discussed that, but seemingly it looks to be that this was released. It has a signature of being a modified virus. It has some DNA in it, from what I've heard and seen, that relates back to somebody inserting it into it. So if we assume at some level this is a managed agenda, then they release this intentionally on their own people. And backstory I've been hearing is that they were worried about this Hong Kong protest, and they wanted to quiet it down. And by releasing this, as you can see, that Hong Kong protest that was starting to rise in China all but disappeared as they began to manage this issue. And obviously this is now moved out globally and seems like it's opportunistic for what we would call the deep state to latch onto this and kind of fan the flames. And now it's certainly a worldwide, or at least considered a worldwide pandemic. And it's being managed at some level without a doubt. It's interesting the countries that it seems to be flourishing in: Iran, Italy, and also obviously China at this point. So what are your thoughts? Where do you see this going, LA? I mean, I've got some real insights that I think we'll talk about a little bit here, but where do you see this?
Well, and thanks for throwing it back at me. Yeah, I'm alarmed by what I see. I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, it's gone from, well, it's over in China to now there's cases in the United States. There's about 50 deaths last time I checked in the U.S. Many of them are elderly, in their 70s, 80s, even older, with pre-existing lung conditions. And here's the deal, and we both know this: around 18,000 people died this year in the U.S. from the normal flu. 18,000 people versus 50. So we've got a disparity of numbers here, and it makes me wonder, what am I really looking at? No one's talking about the 18,000 or 20,000 people that died from the flu, but 50 people died, and it's like, oh my gosh, and people are panicking, and and we talked about this again off air. There's runs at the grocery stores. People are getting angry and violent, shoving, yelling, swearing. I mean, the whole deal, lawlessness. It's me first. Courtesy and civility is basically thrown out the window. We used to have pretty much a year's supply of food in our root cellar here before the fire, and the fire was so hard it burned through the fire door and destroyed most of the food goods that we had stored up. But we did that because for an event just like this, so we don't have to go to the market, and we have well water with 3,000 gallons of water, so we're self-contained. And propane, well, all that's gone because of the fire, although there are a little bit of food stores that made it through the fire. But I'm alarmed at what I'm seeing, and it's not, it hasn't corrected itself yet. Okay, so today's March 14th, we're moving into warmer weather, so as it gets warmer, we should see a decline in numbers. But some of these people, some of these guys are going, there's going to be 1.5 million deaths in the U.S. Well, I mean, that's major fear-mongering. And what we hear in every election cycle, SARS, bird flu, Ebola, I mean, every single election cycle, there's always a disease. So now this is the new disease, and the Democrats, of course, it's all Trump's fault. He didn't act quickly enough, blah, blah, blah. So some of this is definitely being politicized. But my gut feeling has been from the get-go, and I was on Coast to Coast Wednesday, and I know you know that, that this is a New World Order globalist deal. It's managed. It's a takedown to basically break the back of the U.S. economic engine, which has been humming like crazy. Now, Friday, the stock market corrected itself and went up 2,000 points. So it fell a couple of thousand, but then it went back up. Meanwhile, silver's tanking. It's like 14 and some change, like 1480 or something like that. Down from, let's say, 18 or 19, where it's been 17 and 19, where it's been hovering for the last year, although it did spike to 21. Gold's down. So it makes you wonder, what are we really looking at? So, with that in mind, you talked about this. You alerted me on this. I'll throw the ball back in your court. 30,000 troops deployed into Europe? I mean, I haven't heard anything about that. What's your source on that?
Well, on the back channels, the 8chan board, where certainly a lot of the real news is being disseminated, there was talk, actually Rush Limbaugh mentioned it on his show about 3 days ago, also noted, but nobody can really verify if those were troops that were originally deployed in Europe, because obviously we have troops over there already, or newly deployed. But there seems to be something afoot in Europe right now. Obviously, you have Italy on lockdown, and at this time, there's a lot of concern on what really is going inside Italy. If you remember, Pompeo, Barr, Durham all have been over there investigating money laundering, sex trade, and different issues as part of the Russian collusion and stuff in Italy. And so there's a lot of interest in what's really going on in Italy and why were they over there, and why is Italy suddenly hit and they're on lockdown. I do know that there's been some, while this lockdown has been going on this morning, just reporting the news, the Italian government has moved in and made some major arrests on some big name corruption that's been going on in Italy. So you wonder what's really going on, and if our troops are being positioned over there, what are they expecting? At the same time, you have now the National Guard is being deployed within the U.S., which is a very interesting.
Now, let me interrupt you. When did that come down? Wasn't that recently from Trump deploying that?
Right.
What's your source on that?
Yeah, 1,000 troops would be deployed. Now, they're using this deployment, from what it appears, the deployment is somewhat in relationship to the virus. And so as I've spoken about to other people, and I don't want to say that the virus isn't real, it's real, but they're using this virus, what's going on, I believe Trump is positioning things around the U.S. in preparation for something else that's going on behind the scenes. Yes, they're dealing with the virus, but there's something else afoot. And that's what we've been alluding to for probably the last 2.5 years on the Q board and 8chan board, as we look to see this move against the deep state. So he is deploying the National Guard in relationship to the virus, but we're starting to see maybe there's some dots that we need to start connecting to see what exactly is this telling us that's going on. Yes, the food virus, the food lines are long. I went over to pick up some stuff the other day. The airline that I work for is doing massive cuts. we're going to see a rollback in the economy for a temporary time. There's no doubt. But at the same time, I guess, where is this all headed? What are your thoughts at this point, LA? We've been talking about this. Throw your thoughts out there for us.
You know, it's really hard to say, but you're right. Food lines at the grocery store, and you were telling me this, every single checkout stand was open, and the lines were like 18 to 25 people deep, back up the aisles. My daughter also said that when she went to the market just to get a couple of things, the shelves were bare. And so people are in panic mode where there's really no need to panic. And,
right.
you know, I've been saying this for years: stockpile food, stockpile food, stockpile food, and water. Now in Oklahoma, you know, we don't have a year's supply of food, but my wife is okay because we've stockpiled some stuff for just a time, for just as a scenario like we're looking at. I mean, it's prudent to do that because you never know what's going to happen. We both know W, this guy that goes by the name of W, who seems to be some sort of an insider. And he's been feeding both of us information, and he believes that this whole thing is being used to drain the swamp, to take down the shadow government. And there is a difference between the shadow government and the deep state. They're two separate factions. I had a sit down with Kevin Shipp here at the Watchman Conference in Dallas last weekend, and before we were leaving, Kevin and I just sat down for a little over an hour and chatted it up. A very fascinating man, ex-CIA, whistleblower for the CIA. And he sent me a video that he did in Dealey Plaza, just going through, and I know I'm hopping around, but I'm going someplace with this, that you know, in Dealey Plaza, the whole deal, no pun intended, was, in his opinion, it was a CIA operation. And I mean, saying that in 2020 can get you killed. Especially if you're ex-CIA, which is what he is. I guess he was in there for like 17 years in the agency, and he saw lots and lots and lots of corruption, which is why he became a whistleblower. So he's in Dealey Plaza, and he's talking about the Masonic overtones at Dealey Plaza, the pillar, the pool, the different symbols. And I've been there like 3 or 4 times, and it hasn't changed. They've left it just the way it was back in '63 when they blew JFK's brains out. And he believes, as I believe, that the kill shot came from the grassy knoll, not from Oswald, the 6-4 depository window, and on it goes. But he believes it was a CIA operation because Kennedy had just fired Allen Dulles. And right. That's a no-no. And then threatening us to splinter the CIA in 1,000, you know, shards, basically. Well, that didn't happen. And so after Kennedy, look who's in the office. Look where we go. And that whole scene with Donald Sutherland in the JFK movies, to me, is one of the most poignant, riveting, goosebump type scenes I've ever seen in all of film, where Sutherland and I can't think of the guy's name, the district attorney of New Orleans, the character's played by Kevin Costner, but they're there on a park bench in Washington. They're watching monuments in the background. And Sutherland just goes from the JFK assassination, from the Bay of Pigs, right into, you know, what the CIA has been engaged in. All the little dirty wars, all the overthrows, all this nonsense. I mean, just look at what happened with Gaddafi. And then from what Kevin Shipp was talking about, you know, they could have saved Gaddafi. They were overhead. And they didn't. They just let him hang. Let him, you know, swing on that rope, as it were. And he was brutally beaten to death, raped by his own citizens, which is what they do over there, literally raped anally. Go figure. That's what they take sport in. And he was killed. And we could have stopped it, but we didn't. So you get all these little CIA deals all through the presidents from Kennedy assassination up till Donald Trump. And Trump was never supposed to be elected. You and I have talked about this numerous times, and I've mentioned it countless times on Acceleration Radio PPS Report. Trump was never supposed to get elected. Hillary was always supposed to be the president, and that would have been on the fast track to globalism, open borders, bringing in more and more illegals and allowing the illegals to vote, and who knows what else. But we would have been on the fast track of a new world order. So instead we get a nationalist and we have the media basically for 3.5 years excoriating, eviscerating this man on a daily basis. He is a real president, and he's not playing games with the New World Order. He's a nationalist, which is why he brought us out of NAFTA, and he immediately put the kibosh on the Paris Accords. So here's a guy that's America first. That's his slogan, and keep America great again, America first, and that's where we are. The globalists hate him, so they try to take him down with the phony Russian dossier. That blows up. The whole Comey thing, total hoax. Then they go to the goofy impeachment thing with the Star Chamber by Adam Schiff, and Nancy Pelosi just railroading this thing through Congress, and of course that's voted down and he's completely exonerated. Any other person, I think, would have buckled a long time ago. Trump enjoys the fight, but I've also heard that there's been assassination attempts on him already that have been somehow thwarted. So, when you look at all this and you go back to the globalist agenda, one way to take Trump out, because they can't take him out any other way, is to collapse the U.S. economy. And so, in my opinion, that's what I think we're looking at. Back to you, Matt.
Right. I'm going to pick up right there. Yeah, I believe that what they have decided, the deep state is attempting at this point, is to take down the economy. If they can destroy the economy, they can destroy his presidency and hopefully get him removed before or right at this next election. Let me paint a little picture of what I think is going on behind the scenes. I think that's what people are interested in even now, bringing it up to date. You've said a good history of how we got here in a brief time. But in the last 6 months, there's been one of the things that's gone on, and you can look this up, people can look it up, is Project Python. And this is a move by the DEA to take down the drug cartels in the U.S. And why is that important? They've arrested over 600 of these people throughout the U.S. The drug cartel has been historically the enforcement arm at some level of the deep state, even in conjunction with possibly the CIA and some of the government organizations. One example for people, if you look into the Seth Rich death, most people believe now that he was killed by 2 MS-13 guys hired by somebody. Obviously, the chain, we believe, goes all the way back to possibly somebody within the Democratic Party, because of his connection with the Democratic Party and his leaking their information. So now you have the takedown of this domestic drug dealers throughout the U.S. So it looks like Trump is moving to disarm more and more parts of the deep state, and at this point, positioning troops. We've heard all the talk. We know that Gitmo's been expanded over the last couple years. He's poured in somewhere over $500 million, possibly up to $1 billion.
I heard it was about $1 billion. What's your source from that? I mean, we hear about these things, but that's like really on the QT. I mean, that's not national news. So where's you talk about Gitmo being revamped. What's your source on that?
Well, what's real interesting is if you go online, you can go on Flight Tracker, and you can see all the flight activity going back and forth into the Gitmo area, which is in and of itself fascinating. You can see how many planes are going back and forth, personnel. We know that troops have been deployed from Arizona. You can go on because troop deployments get published in local news sometimes because of local people who are impacted by it. We know that some came out of North Carolina in the last year, and they're beginning to stock, obviously, personnel. I actually have photos from Gitmo. People have sent me and have been posted by guys who are positioned down there saying we're ready for the prisoners. So even the local military guys, they usually put a sign in front of their face because they don't want to be publicly known. But they take their picture in front of the Gitmo sign and says, we're open for business. Obviously, they've been preparing for political prisoners, and that's what we've heard for 2 years, and it's been dragged out a lot longer than you and I even imagined. But I think we're at that point. And W, who's been a source for both of us, has said a couple things real interesting. we're in this 30 days lockdown of the international travel.
Right.
There's real talk that domestic travel possibly could be shut down for a very short period of time, possibly 4, 5, 6 days. If that should happen, remember the scenario that's already developed in the U.S. We have no sporting events going on.
Right.
We have no conventions. Churches have, our church locally here has gone just on, it's going to be over the internet. So you have nobody really gathering. The local schools here are shut down, I believe, in Southern California area, San Diego.
Let me interrupt for a second. Same thing in Ohio. All the schools are shut down. We canceled the Nephilim Again conference because of the. In fact, just let me, and then don't lose your thought. But a week ago, when I called the Cherry Valley Hotel, Cherry Valley Lodge in Ohio, where the conference was being held, they assured me that everything was fine, everything was good. Well, fast forward to Wednesday, a week later, this past Wednesday, everything had changed, and they said, "Yeah, we get it. What we're doing, we'll refund your money." But they want us to move the date, so we moved the date till September. So, I mean, just in 1 week's time, they went from, well, no, if you cancel the conference because of this thing, we're keeping all the money, to just reschedule and you'll be fine. So everything is changing, and changing quite rapidly. Please pick it up from there.
Well, so imagine what is now kind of materializing within the U.S. Everybody's pretty much at home. Everybody's pretty much not watching a lot of different events. At this point, you have a possible, the economy is certainly slowing down. With all these people at home, kids and everything, imagine the scenario develops. They shut down domestic travel. And at that time, which Trump had set up the emergency system, if he were going to, let's say, go after the deep state, maybe make arrest and take down what we have been talking about for years, and what most people have seen within our government for 70, 80 years, and wondered if he could ever clean it up. To me, the perfect storm seems to be arising for him to do the things that we have been talking about for 2.5 years on the back channel boards, and that he's alluded to through the Q board, what he's hoping to do or what he's planning to do. And that is to rid us of this deep state influence that has governed so many areas of our lives, whether it's in the financial, whether it's in the entertainment industry, as we're seeing so many in the entertainment industry being for pedophilia, sex slave, and so many things. But corruption, even within our government. And remember, when Trump came in, it was not only the Democrats that were against him, there were their own Republican people who were also against him. And the reason some people go, why is this taking so long? Why we haven't seen arrests? Remember, he had to change out, and he has over 170 plus judges. Why? Even judges were being corrupted at some level. So in order for him to even begin to clean house, he had to get people, honest people, into the judicial system. He had to get government officials that have been corrupt out of the deep state people out of his administration. And so there's so many things that have been at work, but we seem to be in a 30-day period right now. I think we're in the storm, as they call it on the Q board. We're in the storm. I believe you should be prepared, but I don't think you should be frightened about what you may see or what takes place. I'm not fearful at all. I'm excited, actually.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, actually, so. Some arrest for the corruption we all know that's been going on. I mean, look at all the political leaders that have become absolutely millionaires on salaries of $150,000, $160,000 a year in government. Yes, it's totally impossible. So where's all this money coming from? Well, it's coming from all. We know we've tracked this for so long. Money gets sent overseas in financial aid. It gets over there, and you send $2 billion, and it gets somehow rerouted. Some of that money is paid back to these officials within the government. They all make their money, and it's been a gravy train. So nobody's wanted to upset the cart. Here comes Trump, an outsider, not politically aligned really with Republicans or Democrats, but he's not politically tied to anybody because financially nobody's got a fork in him.
Bingo.
he's able to operate at a whole different level. And we know, and maybe some of your audience doesn't know, but it's worth repeating, it was the military who came to him a year and a half prior to asking him to run for office, because the generals and admirals had met secretly and had seen so many acts of treason, headed up by Admiral Lyons, I believe, who was the head of the Pacific Fleet. And people can Google him. And Admiral Lyons talks about the open treason he had seen within the Obama administration. It goes back to the Bush and Clinton and other administrations, but became predominantly corrupt within the Obama administration. And at that time, they decided that there was two ways to go: either a coup, which the American people wouldn't understand because they don't understand really what's going on, or we need to get the right guy in who's willing to give up his time and most of his life in order to go after this deep state and clean it up. So they went with Trump, and Trump has done incredible, to me, incredible what he's done. And so I just believe we're on the cusp. We're right there at the tipping point where I believe we are going to see some real changes manifest here in the next few weeks, maybe months. Maybe it'll go into summer, but I think we're going to see some real changes on the horizon. But I tell people, don't be anxious, don't be fearful. I believe the Trump administration is in complete control at this point of what's going on. And they are moving towards a goal behind the scenes. And I know we want to talk about this. I don't know how much time we have left. Interesting development. He called for a day of prayer.
Hold it right there, man. I'm going to cut you off right there because I got to take a hard break and talk about jingos. But let's talk about the day of prayer when I get back. Folks, here's the deal. There's a guy that we both know. He's in New Zealand, all right? And he heard about jingos. And so he had this rug, and there was a spot on it. So he sprayed the jingos just the way he's supposed to do it. And it kind of made it worse. In fact, the spot started to go out. So he called the manufacturer. And by the way, it's manufactured right here in the good old USA in Ohio. I've been to the factory. Small little factory, but you know what? It's American made. 2 employees, and they make this stuff. Anyway, the manufacturer right here in the USA told them, rent a carpet cleaner, and instead of the stuff that they give you, fill it with jingos and clean the carpet. Well, he did that. He followed the instructions. And he sprayed jingos on it on the spot first and then used the carpet cleaner. Guess what, folks? The spot's completely gone. Here's a before and after. www.buyjingos.com. This stuff really works. We don't monetize here. We have a sponsor. And we love jingos. We use it all the time. I got it out here in California. And wherever we go, jingos goes with us. www.buyjingos.com. And we'll see you on the other side of the break.
By jingos, it's amazingly fresh and clean out here in beautiful New Zealand. G'day America, I'm Tarby, and I want to tell you about my new ultimate stain and odour remover, Jingos. My Jingos gunk gobblers will tackle stubborn organic stains and eliminate nasty stinking odours at the same time. Jingos effectively removes those little accidents like wine, coffee, dirt, blood, grass, even pet stains, and odours like fish, garlic, even skunk. Jingos is environmentally friendly, safe for use on fabrics, carpet, upholstery, and it works great as a laundry pre-soak on the worst pet or people accidents. Come on America, what are you waiting for? Just go online and order your Jingos for $12.95 and get a 4-ounce travel pack free. Crikey, pay $19.95 and I'll double your order. That's 2 large Jingos and 2 travel packs for just $19.95. Blasted seagulls, where's my Jingos?
And we're back, folks. Thanks for keeping it right here on Acceleration Radio. My special guest, and we're going to start doing more of these. It's the Matt and LA show, or the LA and Matt show.
There you go.
I mean, it's great because we just feed off each other, and I wish he lived closer so we could be on set with each other, just like Bill Salas. There's a real rapport there. But Matt, right before the break, you were talking about Trump calling for a day of prayer. Why is this unprecedented? Why is this unique?
Well, we've never seen it in our history that I can think of, at least in my time. Maybe it happened back in World War II and maybe World War I presidents there. But this whole idea of calling on prayer and stuff is pretty foreign to our time and era, that's for sure. What I understand is Trump got a note from a rabbi, and he told it that if he believed God had spoken to the rabbi believed God had spoken to him to send this note. And basically what it said in a nutshell was, call for a day of prayer. And on that day, as a nation, pray. And if he would lead this, that God would begin to stop the spread of the virus dead in its tracks. And it would be a miraculous event that would be seen really around the world. America do something as radical as pray. I mean, nobody does that. We throw money at problems. That's what we do. We don't pray. We go and we say, we got a disease, let's throw money. But this could be a tremendous game changer. So this tomorrow, which is Sunday, President Trump has called. You can go to his Twitter account and you see he's called for a day of prayer to come against this virus, to pray as a nation. What a novel idea.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget your rights are based upon a creator. It's written in our Declaration of Independence that the rights you have are God-given rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If there is no God, there are no rights. Do you understand? When you
then the state, the government is going to tell us what we can or we cannot do. So,
yeah, it just becomes the state is who dictates your rights. And so we need to re-acknowledge what we truly believe on our money. In God we do trust, and we don't trust in government. We don't trust in so many areas, but we ultimately trust in God. And it's not an innocuous God. Our founders weren't like, are we a Hindu nation? No, we were basing our belief upon the God of the Bible. It didn't mean we were all in sync on this, and it was one unified idea. But we did unify into the idea of the Christian idea of God, Jesus Christ. There was no other God in this country at the time. There was no Muslims here and all that, as the Obama administration said it. It wasn't Obama who said we were founded by Muslims.
Yeah, just a complete rewrite of history there. Thank you, Mr. Obama.
So anyway, all that to say is, look, if you're not a believer, you're not a Christian, watch and see if God doesn't show up. I mean, I believe, I know our household will be praying on Sunday, and I expect, hopefully, we'll see an incredible move of God. If we as a nation do this, that's the question. At least our leadership is at least bringing this forward. So I'm excited. Could be in some real exciting times, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The Bible talks about, since we're moving into that area, and both of us are devout Christians. We've been born again, Spirit-filled for decades. You have a vibrant ministry. I have a vibrant ministry. At least I like to think so. And, we're sinners saved by grace. I mean, I get that. And we all fall short. I understand all that. But doggone it, that's, this is, we believe in what is written. There's a saying I came up with years ago: what was written will come to pass. What is foretold is unfolding. So when we go to the Synoptic Gospels of Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13, those are just addresses with chapters, but they're synoptic. They all line up together. And we read the punch list that, Jesus himself is telling us what to watch for, what to look for. Earthquakes in diverse places, wars and rumors of wars. Many will come in my name, saying I am the Christ. Famines, pestilence. So here we've got this whole idea of pestilence. And, I mean, look, I'll be 70 years old this year in December. And in my short life, I've never seen anything like this, where it's a global event. Global. Last time I saw the grid like this, Matt, was Fukushima, where the grid was lit up and it's all everyone was talking about. So the entire media had gone in lockstep, corona, 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 and fed this thing to the point of absolute hysteria. So I think it's a managed agenda. The virus is real, but they're weaponizing it politically to somehow bring down the U.S. But what's interesting is, I believe this is, in some ways, and I realize you can't get your exegesis off the 6 o'clock news. I understand that. But I really believe that we're in that window of time where we are looking at that punch list that Jesus gives us before his return. And there are churches, Paul Begley actually talked about this at the Hear the Watchman conference last weekend, which, by the way, was fantastic, and great speakers and just a great time in the Lord. But And that might be one of the last conferences we see this year. I know, again, we've canceled the Nephilim Again conference, but we've postponed it till September 18th, folks. Nephilim Again will happen September 18th. So if you got your ticket, you're in, but it's going to be 18th of September, September 18th. But I digress. So here's the deal. Begley was saying that there are now pastors in America who are basically saying that, well, Jesus is never really going to return. Don't worry about that. Don't focus on that. There's actually pastors who are standing up and saying, well, that's just, it was written, and that's really not going to happen. He's really not coming back. But he was a good man, and we should follow in his footsteps. Which is just, when you go back into Scripture, obviously, where is the promise of his coming? All things continue since the grandfathers fell asleep. So we are in that window of time where skepticism is at an all-time high, in my opinion. People look at it and what we believe, and they laugh. And folks, there's a remnant. There's just a remnant of people on this planet out of the 7 billion people that are looking up, that are expectant, that think he's going to return. And frankly, let me just share something with you before I'll hand it back to you. This week I was kind of going like, Lord, and I'm in California, and we're trying to rebuild. We still don't have the permit. I'll give you updates on that, folks, but we're close, that close. We can just get fire to sign off and drainage, we're in, because everything else has been approved. But we're working here, and my good friend Benarby is working with his crew, and Dan the Carpenter is working with his friend Shane, and I'm working. We're all putting this thing back together very slowly. So I was alone walking around the property because we got rained out. And my Lord, I just said, Lord, I really love it here. And as much as I want to go home, part of me doesn't want to go home. I want to stay here because this is what I know. And my Lord said, which is just amazing how gentle and kind he can be. Merciful, gracious, slow to anger, and full of unfailing love. Psalm 105. And he just said, the reason why you feel this way is because this is all you know. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going. And that's okay to feel that way because this is all you know. You've never been to where I am. You've never been to the house I prepared for you. You have no idea what's there. So this is all you know, and it's okay to feel that way. So it was kind of, just amazing how loving he is. I mean, he could have gone, you fool, smack. If it was me, you idiot, you don't know anything. But that's not what he did. It's just like a father, tender and merciful to his children, to those that fear him. And it says in our scriptures, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. So pick it up for there, Matt. I mean, I think we're in that window of prophetic complications, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, right. Well, when 9/11 happened, we saw a 3, 4, maybe 5 week return of people to churches in mass numbers. It was very interesting. That tapered off fairly quick.
Yeah.
Once the uncertainty disappeared, we're back to very uncertain times. And for the next 30 days, families are having their kids at home from school at a time when they normally don't. Sporting events are off. Everything's changing. Food might be a little more in demand as the food chain to get it to the markets might be delayed a little bit because there's been such a rush. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty at this point. And there's going to be a lot of anxiety for people who maybe lose jobs, laid off because of this stuff. So to me, it's a great time but when people are very uncertain to look for things that are true, certain and stuff. And this is where, to me, the truth of the Gospels reigns, because Jesus ultimately was asked the question, Pontius Pilate asked the greatest question and didn't stick around for the greatest answer. And that is, what is truth? Because we're all looking for truth. You and I, when we look through all the newspaper and what's going on, coronavirus, what's this, we're looking for the truth ultimately. And Jesus said, I am the truth. This is truth incarnate. If you will listen to me, he'll lead you into where truth resides, and that is in God himself. And be honest, each one of us today has a creator. You, me, everybody that's created. We all have creators. We all have a creator, I should say. I don't mean creators, but we're all created by one being. and we all relate back to him. That's why in these times of uncertainty, what do we usually look? We always look back to God. Even if we haven't gone to church, been involved in anything spiritually, we begin to look because we know of one certainty, that we weren't just some accident of nature that showed up here. We have a creator, and somewhere we do relate back to that creator. And I think right now it's going to be a tremendous time for the church to be the church and to help those who are in need and things of that nature, because that's really what the true calling of the church is to reach out in love and to share the gospel, but to share in what we have and to help others, and so that they will know their creator once and for all.
Well
So,
said. Well said.
great time of revival. Great time of revival in our country.
I want to circle back into what's happening globally. We have several people, one gentleman in Alaska and a family in northern Spain. And let's go with the northern Spain thing. I received a letter from this person today, and she basically stated that she's in a small town, couple hundred people, everything's shut down. Everything is shut down. And the Spanish police are patrolling the streets. There's checkpoints. People are in quarantine. Shortages of food. There's only two things that are open right now, the market and the pharmacy. That's it. Everything, all businesses, all schools, everything is completely shut down in Spain where she is. And another acquaintance of mine who lives in Alaska basically said the same thing. All cruises have been canceled. Runs on markets. Schools are closed. So, I mean, this thing is not getting any better. And, you know, you mentioned something to me last week, or I'm sorry, a couple of days ago, that Delta is basically taking 300 planes offline. Now, it's my understanding that they have to fly those things every week. In other words, they just can't sit there because. Explain that to us. What's going on with that?
They're going to, in the next 2 months, as this develops, they're going to probably cut their workforce 40% at minimum. They're going to park 300 planes. They're going to thin their schedules at least 10% domestically. So there's going to be some radical changes. They're now processing this all this weekend, and come Monday morning, we'll get some more details on it. But when you no longer really travel much internationally, you've shut that down. They'd already shut down China. Now you shut down Europe. I don't know if they'll shut down Australia and Japan, but they're thinning everything out because really the other day when I was flying, normally we were expecting about 220 passengers. I think we ended up with 160. So people just aren't showing up for their flights at this point. Obviously, they're canceling or changing. My own daughter was supposed to fly out from South Carolina to come see us this weekend, and she decided not to because she didn't want to get stuck out here in the event that some decree comes down from the administration that they're going to shut down domestically for a time. So people are hunkered down. There's no doubt. Things are rolling backwards very quickly, and we see that it's going to affect everyone. We don't know how this is going to affect. Be honest, you and I are watching this and trying to make hay of how this is going to unfold at this point. But I do believe Trump is prepared for this. He's told us all along that they've anticipated these things. They've anticipated all these moves by the deep state to destroy our economy, destroy certain things, and he's been in preparation. And I truly do believe that. I think he was prepared. The Fed's infused, $1.5 trillion of liquidity into the system this week in one day. That's a phenomenal amount of money, $1.5 trillion of liquidity. Why? Because as they trying to take us down, he was prepared to make the moves to make sure they couldn't do it. And they have to be getting frustrated because they were hopeful that this whole thing would be blown up. And yet Trump has systematically been able to continue to counter. And how has he done this? Because they prepared. They knew the playbook. They had the playbook of the deep state. And as much as the deep state has tried to come after him, and there's even hints that some of the political leaders, past political leaders, are even hinting of a possible assassination attempt. And you mentioned assassinations, and we know that there's been at least 12 assassination attempts. That's probably a shock to everybody because they're never in the news. But there's actually been according to the news, the real news, at least 12 attempts on his life so far. And so he's certainly insulated this point very heavily, because we're well aware that they'll do anything to take him out at this point. But I just believe God has sovereignly placed this man as our leader time like this. Whether you think he's a Christian, not a Christian, don't like him, do like him, God does appoint our leaders at times, and I believe he is a direct appointment by God for this time, for this situation. And in my mind, who better to take us through a possible world bankruptcy than Trump? He's a business guy. He's prepared. He understands the whole system. And hopefully he'll take us through this time. And we'll come out a better country on the back side of this. Certainly if we return to God, we'll see dramatic changes in our country. Dramatic changes.
You know, what's interesting here is Hillary was always supposed to win. So I believe that as this thing moves forward, like let's just look at Burisma with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, where we've got Joe Biden recklessly on camera bragging that he goes to the Ukrainian officials and go, here's the deal, you fire the prosecutor who's prosecuting my son, or you don't get the money. And they say, well, you're not the president. And he says, oh yeah, call. And he's boasting. This, I mean, they've got him on film. I've seen it. I've run the clip. They've got him on film boasting. Oh yeah? You know, and doggone it, son of a gun. Of course, he doesn't say gun. He says something else. Typical Joe Biden. But what a blusterer. My God. You imagine him as president, run for the hills. But he goes, son of a gun. They fired the guy and they got the money. So that's a real quid pro quo. And of course, Sean Hannity's been saying quid pro Joe, and that's what it is. But that was never supposed to see the light of day because Hillary was always supposed to win. So all that would have just gone away. All the Hunter Biden stuff that we're seeing now with Burisma, where Hunter Biden made millions of dollars, you know, doing what? Can I have that job, please? Right? And I think it's eventually going to go back into the goofy Iranian deal, where millions and millions and millions of dollars were packed in the sea, whatever those huge planes are, flown into Iran, cash. They could have wired the money, but they didn't. Now, why didn't they wire the money? You tell me. Who's skimming off the top? And think about this, that Iran is just giving all that to its proxy armies. Hezbollah in the north, the Houthis in Yemen, and on it goes to augment terrorism. Now, we know from the news that the Iranian military got hit again, I think last night, because they were acting funny once again. So Trump's not playing around. You hit us, we're going to hit back. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and yes, he did. He took out the latest Iranian leader in Iraq. They had killed 2 of our soldiers, and so he took out their leadership. I believe there was 19 people taken out. Let me paint one picture that I don't know if people see in these last 3 years. I think it's really important. What's Trump really trying to move to? He's trying to move to a time of peace throughout the world. You realize he's slowed down North Korea, and they're really, other than a few rumblings there, we don't see any real action, no threat of war. Remember, that was all, we're going to be at war in no time. Well, that's all cease and desist. He went over to Syria, took care of Syria. We don't hear any more war talk with Syria. We don't see a lot of unrest over there other than some small skirmishes. He goes over, signs a peace treaty. We'll see how they honor that with the Taliban, and to pull us out of Afghanistan, which he's doing right now. And Iran, who everybody thought we'd be in a war with, we've all but squelched them in this oil problem. You know, it's gone down to what, $33 a barrel. It'll probably sink them for quite a while because they won't be able to sell and make any real money on the market. So he is bringing a whole sense of peace, whether people realize it or not, around the world in areas that have been hotspots through the past, 20, 30 years of the past administrations of Obama, Clinton, Bush's. And this was the deep state. You and I know that. This was the deep state. ISIS was deep state. It wasn't some...
completely created by us, I think.
created by, I believe, by the Obama administration. And then, we've seen the pictures of McCain meeting with them. Even John McCain was involved in them.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So we've seen the pictures. We know what's really going on behind the scenes. But he's undoing all that. And I believe his ultimate goal is to see a time where we do have peace in the world. And we're not constantly at war with every nation, and certainly China's being neutered, I think, right now because of what's going on, and where they were probably going to be militarily dominant within about 5 years. I don't think that happens now under all the duress they're under and the financial collapse that's maybe very imminent for China at this point, because what's going to happen is all the pharmaceutical manufacturing is going to come back to the States.
Here, right.
Supply chains that are being disrupted, guys that need parts can't get them. It's all coming back to the U.S., and this is what ultimately Trump was trying to do, is bring back manufacturing, bring it back to the United States so we don't have dependence upon other people, other governments, and we have to beckon to them in order to do anything. As long as we're independent, we can dictate our future at some level. And I believe that's ultimately what he's trying to do. So, yeah, we will certainly see LA in the next, I think a lot's going to play out. I think maybe we'll have to do these talks, but we have to do them probably within about 24 hours of when you're going to put them out, because it's just changing so fast.
Fast. Yeah, I'm going to put this up well in advance of Acceleration Radio. I may even try to get it today or tomorrow. I want to throw you a major curveball. I've had several people email me with this, and I've talked about it, but I'm going to throw it out. This is a very far-fetched scenario, but one that could happen. First of all, we know in 2017 on Tucker Carlson that the whole UFO phenomenon was broadcast. Fox News, Tucker Carlson. They had Tucker here, Commander David Fravor, former F-18 pilot, and on the other side of the triptych was real footage of a tic-tac-shaped UFO flying over the Pacific. So since then, on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, the steady stream of people coming forward. So here's a scenario. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I believe in this, but what we're trying to do is just think of the different scenarios, which is what we've done here, to try to get people braced, to give them information. So what if this thing really goes viral? I mean, pandemic-wise. What if the body counts really start piling up? Not happening yet, but what if it happens? What if this thing really takes a turn or mutates or something happens, and all of a sudden it's like the Spanish flu in 1917 where, millions of people were dying? What if they show up at that point and they'll say, we created all life on Earth, we are your progenitors, and we're here now to give you the antidote to this horrible virus because we love you. And they've got this little chip which, you insert in the back of your hand or on your forehead, and you're healed from the coronavirus. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I throw it out there because I've had several emails from people saying, what if, what if, what if? And so we're kind of addressing it. Now, that's a very far out scenario, one that I'm not promulgating, but I'm throwing it out there because some people are thinking about that. Your thoughts?
Well, I always think back, we discussed the UFO stuff many times, but you can't help but think of the verse in the Bible that says, in those days men's hearts would grow faint upon what's coming upon the earth. And the idea is it looks as though something is coming upon the earth that men see coming, and their hearts are distressed because of it. Is the UFO phenomenon part of that? In my mind, it certainly could be. They've been around for thousands of years. It's not something just happened in Roswell. It goes back prior to that, as you've shown in Fatima and many other documents, whether it's the diary, the log of Christopher Columbus reported seeing disc, and it goes back, I believe, thousands of years. And we know that it's probably, we believe it's certainly a demonic activity, manifestation.
Sure.
It's there for deception, clearly for deception. So, yeah, I look, anything's possible when you come to the world of supernatural. We don't fully understand it, but we know biblically there is a supernatural world that interacts with ours and can manifest and then disappear just as quickly. So anything is possible. like you said before, what do you do if a UFO lands on the premises of the White House and somebody walks out and says, we're here? That's a game changer. It's a world
game changer. Right.
At that moment, everybody's worldview, if you're not prepared for it and you don't believe in them and you just think it's all craziness, tin hat stuff and all that, you won't know where to put that in your worldview. Right. How are you going to process that information? It would overwhelm the common person. They're not prepared. At the same time, all the movies have been preparing us for what? An arrival. Whether it goes back to, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, to E.T., to every movie we've seen in the last 20 years. It's all kind of preparing us that this is a reality that's probably going to be foisted on us someplace. So, yeah, it's something we should be in discussion about. Churches should at least embrace it, which we have at our church 3 different times. We brought you in to discuss it, give us some perspective on it, at least introduce it to people's mindset. But, interesting possibility. Who knows?
Interesting times. Matt, thanks so much for coming on the record, folks. I just want to say again that the Nephilim Again conference has been moved to September 18th, the weekend of September 18th. It is not canceled. It's just postponed because of the coronavirus. And we're going to get this up on our YouTube channel sooner than later. Matt, thanks so much for coming on. And folks, if you want to read Matt's articles, they are in our PPS, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural Report Magazine Monthly. Matt has been writing for us. Yeah, there you go. Q. For years. And they're real pithy articles, and you'll enjoy them. And you can subscribe by going to my website, lamarzulli.net. Our new video is out, America Stonehenge. It's episode 4 in the On the Trail of a Nephilim series, packed full of information, mind-blowing stuff. Go to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. We've got a sale right now. You can get all 4 videos. But, you know, folks, I'm working on number 5. Number 6 is already done. So we're rolling this stuff out. Anyway, that's all the time we have for Remember. I'll see you on the air or in the air. Thanks so much for watching.
The story of the reptile, called the Prince of the Power of the Air,
because there's real demonic power and forces behind these locations.
I heard a commotion and I turned around and...
there's no question there's a spiritual implication. It was built upon monolithic stones, which so it was originally a Nephilim stronghold.
So what we're seeing that little stick figure.
The table was actually levitating by itself.
These sites are Nephilim architecture, have anything to do with fallen angels, and of course that means demonic activities.
And something hits me right on my belt, knocks the breath out of me.